Good morning and welcome back to Miniature Monday here on Gaming with ADHD. Today we're returning to the world of Battletech to review the miniatures that come in the box of A Game of Armored Combat, the starter set for the current edition of Battletech. Now this is going to be very similar to the unboxing videos that I did of the Lance and Star packs earlier this year, but I'm going to skip the unboxing part because I've already addressed that in the unboxing of A Game of Armored Combat. But I did want to give these mechs the same treatment to be able to look at the original art and how they've evolved to the current forms that we have today. So, before we get started, do make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I do try to put out a few different videos each week covering all sorts of tabletop gaming content, and I'd love for you to come along and see what we have to share with you. With that said, we also now have a Facebook page that'll be linked down below, so that way when we post new videos, you'll be able to see that in your feeds as well, and be notified that way. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so our first mech that we're looking at is the Shadowhawk. Now, Shadowhawk is one of the classic mechs. It is one of the unseen, and so there is going to be a dramatic shift in some of the art before they bring it into the current styling. Now, Shadowhawks are, again, they're very classic mechs. They've been around since the very beginning of the game, and my first real experience with them was playing the original MechWarrior computer game. No customization, very poor graphics by today's standards, but absolutely, just kind of fills that some of those nostalgia feels for me. But this is the original piece of art. Now, this I think is one of the better pieces of art from the 3025 technical readout. It's actually very clean. You don't see a lot of the line art actually crossing over each other. There is some, but it's not as much. But overall, it's a very clean, very proportional. It's a very, very good looking piece of art. So I've personally always really enjoyed this one. Now, next, we had this. Now, this is the version from Tech Readout 3050. So, it is upgraded a little bit. It's cleaned up a little bit. They're opening up this panel here. I do not recall the Shadowhawk having missiles or anything, so I'm not sure why that panel would need to open, but there you go. But again, it does keep the the original style of art, and gives you a little bit of, we'll call it a cleaner look to the mech. You still have your AC-5 on the shoulder, the SRM-2, and the medium laser. So, this is the first, Project Phoenix approach to the Shadowhawk. Now, Project Phoenix is where they took the unseen mechs, or the ones that they had lost due to licensing issues, and tried to completely reimagine them. I'll be honest, in most cases I'm not a fan. While it's not necessarily a bad look in and of itself, when you're trying to compare it to that original art, this particular one does kind of lose something. I do like how you can see the jump jets a little bit more clearly. Overall, it's a decent piece of art, but to me, it's not a Shadowhawk. Now, it does go to a rotary autocannon, and looks like an SRM-4 in the head, and a pair of medium lasers now. So they did try to come up with like upgrade versions, reasons that the mechs would look different, but this one just kind of loses that Shadowhawk feel. This is the version from Tech Readout 3085. So again, they're trying to play off of the Project Phoenix, but again, go back to and keep a little bit of the original style art. So like we're back down to one laser on the right arm, an autocannon in the shoulder, and then moving over to a 7-shot missile launcher. I don't know. I didn't look up the specific stats of this particular model, but obviously it's kind of losing something. To me, this looks absolutely nothing like what a Shadowhawk should look like, especially because the barrel for the autocannon in the shoulder, almost non-existent. Maybe that's a laser, I don't know, but this one just kind of lost me. But then we go to this version. Now, this is the Ill Clan era. This was actually out of the First Succession War sourcebook. So this is where we get into this current styling that we can see in the miniature. Now, I really do like this one. I think it, in this case, you have the LRM-5. That's right, the Shadowhawk does have an LRM. But at least in this case, they show the LRMs, whereas in the 3050 tech readout, they had the panel open, but there wasn't anything underneath it. So obviously somebody missed something in the art. But then you have the autocannon in the shoulder, and you can see over here the medium laser on the right arm. Overall, I really like this piece of art. I think that what they've been doing with the Ill Clan era mechs, especially when they're redoing the unseen versions, I think they've tried to stay a lot closer to that original art while modernizing it and differentiating it for their own purposes. So that is the last of the Shadowhawks. So let's move on to our next mech. All right, for our second mech, we're looking at the Catapult. Now, this is not one of the unseen, but this is also partly responsible for the infamous Mad Cat. As you can see here, it's got the Marauder-style, chicken-style legs that are back-canted. It's kind of interesting. I've actually own chickens now, and to watch them walk and see how they stand. I always kind of thought the chicken walk style mechs wouldn't actually work, but after owning chickens, I mean, I think we could probably figure it out mechanically. So it's actually kind of interesting to me. But obviously it is a bit of a simple design. You have your LRM-15 racks on the shoulders and some medium lasers in the nose of the mech. Overall, I mean, this piece of art, to me, it's just, again, it's one of those classics. It's always been there from 3025 on. But obviously with 3025, we've got kind of the rough piece of art. But this one overall, I think, is pretty good. We then go to 3050. Now you'll notice that in this case, he's only got 5 missiles in the right shoulder, but they're much larger than you would expect from LRMs. Now, this is 3050, so this was also the introduction of the Arrow 4 missile system. So to have a platform like this, to me, makes perfect sense. A Catapult, which is already launching a mess ton of LRMs from a long ways away, I think putting an Arrow 4 missile system in there is, just a natural byproduct. I don't remember if it also fit in what they had in the other side. I know it couldn't carry 2 artillery pieces, but regardless, I like how they did this. It's a very clean piece of art. It looks more, we'll say, functional, but also again, just clean and a good representation of the Tech Readout 3050 style. We then go to this one, which I believe was Tech Readout 3085. Now, this is a Brent Evans piece of art, which this is the first time I've paid attention and noticed that the Catalyst art director did actually put a bunch of mechs in himself. So I actually think that's pretty cool. But obviously this is a bit older of a Tech Readout. He's not doing as much individual art anymore. But regardless, nice, clean piece of art. A little bit of background, a bit more dynamic and action-oriented, but still with the Arrow 4 missile system. Also, 16 years old, so it's been around for a while. And then we go to our Ill Clan era. Now, personally, I think this is a fantastic redesign. They went back to the LRM-15 racks in the shoulder pods. The lasers in the front of the mech are much easier to see. The cockpit is much easier to find. But then it also then goes to the armor plates that are very prevalent in this style, which overall I do like, and I think this absolutely keeps the art consistent as far as the traditional look for the catapult, but brings it to 21st century standards, we'll call it. Really, really like this one. I think the miniature captures it as well. I think they've done very well with the miniatures in general, just because they're even posing them like the current art. So I really like that. I believe this comes out of the second Succession War sourcebook, and so there we go. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, next we've got the Locust. Now this is coming from the Crusher Joe anime, and again, been around since the beginning of Battletech, originally showing up, I believe, in the second edition, the first Battletech box set, as opposed to Battle Droids. Also, Tech Readout 3025, and this is the art from Tech Readout 3025. It's got these very spindly little legs, the machine guns in the, we'll call them the shoulder pods, and then the medium laser. So it's not packing a whole lot, but it's a 20-ton mech that can run circles around anything else, in most cases, at least at 3025. But regardless, it just looks like it's going fast. It is a clean piece of art, a little bit rough for the age, but overall pretty good. And but I also think it's one of, as you can see from the miniature, they stayed very close to the original art, but they also changed quite dramatically. And so I think that's actually pretty interesting, because I like the changes. I think they did really well at updating it, where in this case I think that it almost doesn't look as much like this original piece of art, but let's look at how it's evolved over the years. So then going to 3050, we have this one. So again, mostly just cleaned up art. They went to 4 barrels for the machine guns, and a bit more cleaned up as far as the cockpit's concerned. In the original piece of art, it seemed to hang down, which was sort of odd over top of the medium laser, but not a big deal. But overall, just a nice, clean version of the original 3025 art. Now this one may be more familiar to people who originally played the MechWarrior Clicks game, because when they introduced the Locust, this actually made it into the miniatures. Now, I'm not the biggest fan, but I also don't think it's a bad design. Normally, I'm really critical of the Project Phoenix versions. I just think they get very, very distant and just don't look right. But I kind of like the way that they did this one. It's got medium, or not medium, but I believe it's small lasers in the shoulder pods and the medium laser up front. But then it also has more of a bug-looking look to it, which, again, it is a Locust. Makes sense. So, overall, I like the redesign here. This is one of the few Project Phoenix versions that I actually liked. But it still actually, kind of looks like it could be a Locust. So there's that. We then have this one from 3085. So keeping that newer style, or that Project Phoenix style, I should say, but just changing up the weapons loadout. And then we go to this one for our Ill-Clan version. And again, like I said earlier, I really like how they did this version of the mech. I think it looks really good. I think it's a fun design and really captures the spirit of the mech itself. So that is the Locust. And let's move on to our last one for this video. All right, and here we have the final mech for today, the Commando. Again, another light mech that in this piece of art looks a little rough. The legs seem a little odd. The feet are kind of large. You know, other than that, I mean, it seems fine. You've got an SRM-6 here in the chest, SRM-4 in the right arm, and I believe there are lasers in the left arm. It's not a bad piece of art. It just lacks a little bit of quality. There's a little bit of rough, sketch. A lot of the extra, we'll call them drafting lines, coming off. So not the greatest piece of art, but not too bad. Again, still very close to what we have today with the Ill-Clan version of the Commando that you can see on the miniature. And then we have this one for 3050. Now you still have kind of these large feet, the legs that seem like this thing is going to be very out of balance. But then a little bit better delineation on the head as opposed to the sort of visor that just seems to like cover half of the face. On the original version, this one seems to be like a fully enclosed head. So a little bit better there. The body's kind of boxy. I'll be honest, the proportions just seem really off on this one. So unfortunately, not the greatest representation. But then we have another piece of Brent Evans art here from 3085. So very characteristic of Brent's style, where you have a lot of these alternating black and white sections, kind of warning zones, the checkers. It gives it a little bit more definition. I see what he's doing here. Not a bad piece of art, very reminiscent of the 3050 version. Overall, pretty good. Definitely an improvement over 3025. So pretty good there. And then we get our Ill-Clan version. And this one, again, I know I'm really boring with the Ill-Clan versions, but I like what they're doing. Especially because in this version, you can see all of the different weapon systems. The laser in the arm, the SRMs in the right arm, the SRM-6 in the chest, and I believe it's a laser in the head. But overall, I mean, it's a very clean, solid piece of art that it's much more demonstrative. Now, the art and the miniature aren't as close as they normally are. It's completely different pose, but overall, not too bad. I still like what they did with it, and I can still see it on the miniature. Overall, it's a good representation, and I rather like it. So that is part one of our Game of Armored Combat review of just the miniatures. Come back next week when we'll have part two, looking at the other 4 mechs. But if you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. I absolutely would appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Battletech is one of my favorite games, so it does show up on the channel from time to time, but I cover all sorts of games and would love for you to come along. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to sign up for the Facebook page. And with that said, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you next time.